Hi, friends. Ethan here. Recently, I saw a video by one of my favorite YouTubers, Mr. Steve Shives, about how he would have liked Voyager to end. And I've always had my own feelings as to how I'd like to have seen the series finish out. And his video inspired me to put this one together. So I'm going to leave a link to his video in the description for you in case you haven't seen it, because it's worth a what? I'm gonna leave it. You inspired me, Steve. You don't need to look at me like that. Now, I will preface this by saying that this whole idea was originally inspired by a rumor I heard when Voyager was on the air. At the time, I remember hearing that the showrunners were considering bringing Voyager home at the end of the 5th season, and I always thought that was a great idea to have some time for the crew to feel the aftermath of the Dominion War, the aftermath of their journey, kind of see what happens to them. And I used to daydream about this because I'm a giant fucking nerd. And that's the kind of thing that giant fucking nerds daydream about. It is. You can't tell me you didn't daydream about your video, Steve. Does anyone know how to get an angry Steve out of your computer? Anyway, I'm entitling this one, How Star Trek Voyager Should Have Ended. I also want to say this picture is by someone named Smearworld, Smeerworld, and he has several Star Trek wallpapers that I found that are awesome and excellent. I'm leaving a link to all of Smearworld's pictures in the description. Check them out. They are fantastic, top to bottom. Also, I'm doing this live instead of like a pre-recorded thing because I don't feel like doing a bunch of editing. And this was something I could put together for you in an afternoon. I have several other videos I'm working on that I already have like a week into. So I just figured I could do this today and get it out to you. And, does this make me a lazy YouTuber? I think it does. So, in this version of Star Trek Voyager, the crew gets home at the end of season 5. That means that the equinox situation never happened. So instead of the end of season 5, beginning of season 6 cliffhanger with the equinox, the crew just gets home. The slipstream technology from Timeless, which happened earlier on in the series, I think that was episode 4 of season 5, could be wrong on that, has been successfully replicated. So B'Elanna and Seven and Harry and Tom have been working on it, and they've perfected it. They do a series of smaller jumps, all of which are successful, proved its validity, proved its reliability, and as the second final episode finishes, B'Elanna says they're ready to use it, they're going to get home. The title, and look, I took that. I did that myself. Well, it's from the episode. I just took a GIF, but I'm proud of it. Anyway, the title of this episode is Out of the Frying Pan. The episode begins with a montage of activity around the ship. Janeway is narrating how proud she is of her crew. They've truly become a cohesive whole. She gives credit to her bridge crew, saying that, her first officer and the rest of her bridge crew showed amazing leadership. And she says they were a light in this very dark place. Final preparations are complete, and the crew settles in. Chakotay and Harry are on the Delta Flyer out in front of Voyager, and the slipstream drive is activated. We have a quick moment of panic that's reminiscent of the Timeless episode with the phase variants. But this time, however, Harry and Seven are ready for it. They correct their calculations, and the jump is successful. So we switch to a control room on Earth. Admiral Paris? A young person's voice and tones. There's a signal approaching. A signal? What kind of signal, Ensign? I don't know, sir. It just entered the sector and it's almost to Earth, sir. Red alert! All hands, unknown vessel approaching Sol System. All ships converge on that signal immediately. Ensign, Transfer the coordinates. It's too late, sir. It's here. It's a ship of... It's a Starfleet... Sir... Ensign, what are you saying? Out with it. Sir, it's... the USS Voyager. Okay, no, it's not like that, but, you know, it's something that's cool. So we switch back to the Voyager bridge, which is full of cheers. Oh, where's the bridge? Oh, there it is. It's full of cheer. Imagine them cheering. This is... So I looked for so many, like, crew photos of them, and in every single one of them, they all just look either mad or depressed. So this was the best you get for cheers. Quick cut to the Delta Flyer. Shows Harry and Chakotay cheering. This is the closest thing I could get to Harry and Chakotay cheering, was Harry and Tom smiling, sort of. Garrett Wang looks so scared. Anyway, Tom's father's voice comes over the con, and he says, "Com, not con. This is Admiral Paris at Starfleet headquarters. Welcome home." And Tom's crying, and he wipes his cheek. "Hey, Dad." And we see Admiral Paris wiping his own cheek. And the camera pans to the open window, and the sky beyond. And it turns from daytime to nighttime, and Voyager swoops through the sky. Fireworks lighting all around the ship. And all of San Francisco seems like they're out to celebrate the crew's triumphant return. We fade to black, and we see text. Stardate 52915.3. Starfleet headquarters. Captain Catherine Janeway debriefing. Janeway is being questioned by Admirals Paris, Nechayev, Blackwell, and Patterson. "Could you have used the caretaker's device to come home?" she's asked. "You allowed a Romulan from 20 years ago on board your ship. Was that wise?" another asks. "This Tuvix you mentioned in your log, he didn't want the separation, but you ordered it anyway, correct?" Now, we never hear her answers to these questions. But these are hard questions about her command decisions. Decisions that arguably led to the loss of officers, and that could have doomed her ship entirely. We cut to Janeway in what looks like her quarters. She's looking out the window at San Francisco. She's obviously weighed down with a heavy heart over the questioning. And the door chimes, and it's Chakotay. His Maquis insignia on his neck is now replaced with Starfleet pips, showing his rank as captain. And as Janeway starts to ask him what's going on, several other officers step into her quarters. "Catherine," Chakotay says, "I'm here to serve a warrant for your arrest. You are hereby informed that a grand jury has indicted you on charges of murder, extreme negligence leading to death of a Starfleet officer, and multiple violations of the Prime Directive." She's led away silently as the camera pans back to the window and the activity of San Francisco below. That's how we end Season 5. Season 6 would be about life after returning home from the Delta Quadrant. Tuvok, of course, would want to represent Janeway in her trial, but early on in the season would be forced to recuse because one of the charges that that has been brought upon her is the death of Tuvix, whom Tuvok was half of. And that being a conflict of interest, he would not be able to represent her in an unbiased manner, according to the tribunal. Instead, the son of Admiral Patterson, who was her warp field professor at the Academy, I believe. From Season 5's episode of Relativity, which is an episode that still could have happened, agrees to represent her. So his name is Mark Patterson, which of course is the same name as Janeway's fiance, and that gives them a short moment of levity Although there's no love arc between the two, because that would be a huge conflict of interest, and we don't want to get into that. But they do think that the coincidence of his name is funny. Chakotay takes over as captain of Voyager. He's been awarded for his conduct during the ship's lost years. He's reinstated in Starfleet, and all charges against him are dropped. Now, he feels a lot of guilt about this because it's obvious that they wanted somebody to pin the deaths of Voyager's crew on someone, and the person that they chose for that was Captain Janeway. But the brass recognizes that the ship was actually run pretty well for what happened, but unfortunately politics sometimes takes over in situations like this. So with a heavy heart, Chakotay decides that he will captain Voyager. Voyager is ordered to go through the wormhole and assist with reparations after the Dominion War. Deep Space Nine ended the same time as Voyager Season 5 ended, so we would get to see... It'd be a chance to see the aftermath of the Dominion War through people that didn't live through it. So we would, as the audience, get to learn things that we otherwise would have missed. Harry Kim would be promoted to second officer of the Voyager and finally become a lieutenant. Good job, Harry. And we could have an interesting arc where he at times would overstep his authority and at other times wouldn't assert himself enough. And this could finally bring Harry Kim something that eluded him all the way through Voyager, which is an interesting character development arc. And that's not Garrett Wang's fault. It's the writers. Blame the right people. Garrett Wang, I'm sure, is a great guy. Let's see. Tom and B'Elanna would stay on for the time being. For season 6, they would stay on at Voyager. The one thing that I think the writers kind of dropped the ball on during the show's progression was when we started, Tom and Chakotay did not like each other. And I was always kind of hoping that we'd either see more of that because I thought it was an interesting dynamic, or that we'd see, some resolution or some understanding to it. And it never really, it just kind of stopped. Like all of a sudden they just stopped complaining at each other. And we didn't really see why or have a reason for them to. I mean, there was some little stuff, but it wasn't as developed as I would have liked to have seen. So I would like to see some more of that in season 6, and then we could get to a resolution. Tuvok would take over as first officer, and so the ship would need a new tactical officer. So, with Worf free after Deep Space Nine ending, no, I'm kidding. 7 of 9 would take over as the tactical officer, and I think that would be interesting for her. She could start to pursue a career in Starfleet, and they could get her out of the ridiculous uniforms that they always had her wear that were obviously for the teenage boys like myself that enjoyed them. But when you see it now, it's like, why would she? She's not going to wear that to work. Come on. She's at work. The doctor would stay on as chief medical officer, but a full-time medical officer would also be assigned. And this person would be more like an LPN, with the doctor being the chief medical officer. And I think we could have an interesting dynamic there where this human is reporting to a hologram and has to, or maybe not human, but a non-holographic being has to report to a holographic being. And I think that could be a very, very interesting situation to examine. And Neelix would stay on Earth. And this is my favorite picture of Neelix that I found. Poor Ethan Phillips. They were like, hey, do something fun. And he's like, oh, like what? And they're like, Pretend that somebody just transported your lungs out of you and you're really surprised about it. Anyway, season 6 would bounce back and forth between Janeway and Voyager. The ship's main duties would concern cleanup after the war, dealing with colonies that were pillaged or essentially under blockade and unable to get supplies during the war, so what's going on with them. They could come across the occasional anomaly or strange alien energy reading because they are doing some exploring here in the Gamma Quadrant as well. And in the season's final episode, Janeway's offered a plea deal. They'll drop the charge of murder, something that her representative said wasn't really that strong of a charge anyway, and only worry about the negligence and prime directive charges. She wouldn't have to go to the penal colony on New Zealand, but she would have to give up her commission. She could still teach at the academy in a civilian position. She could still write a book about her experiences. And Mark would say, it's a good deal. You should take it. End of season 6. Oh, one more thing. In space, Voyager encounters a strange energy reading in the Gamma Quadrant, and 7 of 9 identifies it as the Vaadwaur. It's a Vaadwaur underspace corridor opening in the Gamma Quadrant, and Vaadwaur ships come streaming out, and they attack Voyager. Voyager's able to get away, and the Vaadwaur... You remember the Vaadwaur, these guys? Vaadwaur, they were in like one episode, and they had this cool underspace idea. It was a phenomenal idea that they had these underspace corridors that went all over the place. Well, they found the way to create new underspace corridors, and they're branching out, and they're attacking Voyager. Season 7. Oh, wait. One last thing. Final scene is Janeway accepting responsibility, and the tribunal rules that she be stripped of her commission and returned to civilian life, never to command a starship again. That's the end of season 6. Okay, now on to season 7. So season 7 would be kind of the send-offs for the crew. Voyager is dispatched to learn more about the Vaadwaur underspace corridors, which would begin popping up everywhere in the Gamma Quadrant. And eventually, with the help of the Dominion and the Terrae, who is, if you recall, were the Vaadwaur's main adversary, they would fight the Vaadwaur off, and they would actually gain control of the underspace corridors. And this would allow Starfleet to have a way in the Gamma Quadrant to explore the Delta Quadrant. And because of Voyager's extensive travel through the Delta Quadrant, they would be essential to these efforts, and they would be the lead ship in using the underspace corridors to explore the Delta Quadrant from the Gamma Quadrant. As season 7 winds down, Tom and B'Elanna decide that they're going to leave Starfleet because Tom wants to do holo novels full-time. Oh, yeah. I don't know. Now, I found this image, and I could not find who created this image. Whoever you are awesome, and I want to give you credit. Please let me know if you created this or if you know who created this so that I can give them credit, because this is phenomenal. This is good work. He and B'Elanna welcome their first child in the final episode of season 7, just like we have here in the Prime timeline. Janeway does become an instructor at the academy, and she gets to wear cool clothes. She teaches classes on the Borg, on long-term spaceflight, and of course ethics. Okay, probably not ethics, but definitely the Borg and long-term spaceflight. Chakotay, Seven, Harry, and Tuvok remain on Voyager, working to explore space and forge new alliances with species they'd first encountered when they were lost in the Delta Quadrant. I guess my main problem with Voyager is that I feel like it just kind of stopped, and we really only got resolution for one character, which was Neelix. And we got resolution for him by just leaving him there. They were like, well, bye. And, they reached Earth at the very end of the very last episode, but I'd like to see some time there, some epilogue. And I feel like if we'd had 2 seasons to explore that epilogue, to explore what's next for Voyager and for that crew and for the Federation. And I just think there was a wealth of content there that we could have explored. And I feel bad that, or not bad, but I feel sad that we were never able to see that. So I do have some ideas for some other Star Trek videos I'm going to work on soon. So make sure to subscribe if you liked this one. You'd like to see more Star Trek content from me. And if you like this video, please leave a like. And if you hated it, leave me a comment and tell me why you hated it so I can do better in the future. And a special thank you to all of the artists that I borrowed from. You are all awesome, and thank you very much. And if I missed anyone, please let me know. I want to give everyone credit and where it's due. So I'd also love to hear your ideas for how you think Voyager should have ended. I'm Ethan. Thanks for watching.